good evening, and welcome. Tonight we are going to be continuing our read through of this book, History of the World, Map by Map. You guys really seem to enjoy this series, which I'm really happy about. If you've not seen a video in this series before, normally when I read books to you on my channel, I read them well in advance, just to work on any pronunciations or, make sure I don't stumble over things. But in this series, I do not. I have not looked at these maps other than the titles of them. And I don't know exactly what these maps are going to include, so we're going to explore it all together at the same time. Tonight, our maps have a medieval theme. And we're going to start off with reading about the Silk Road. So let's look at this cool map over here and find the first box to read, which I see up here. It says the Persian Royal Road, 500 BCE to 224 CE. Built in circa 500 BCE, the Persian Royal Road later came to form part of the Silk Road, providing a link to the Roman Empire. However, by the 1st century CE, hostility between Rome and the Parthian Empire, which now ruled Persia, increased the risk of travel along the Royal Road. As a result, more Chinese goods bound for Europe were dispatched by alternative routes to Indian ports, where Roman ships picked up the cargo and carried it across the Indian Ocean. This blue line we can see here is the Persian Royal Road from the capital Susa all the way across Anatolia to Sardis, stretching across the entire Persian Empire, or most of it at least at that point. Let's see, number 2 is Zheng Qian's expedition from 138 to 125 BCE. As an envoy of China's Han government, explorer Zheng Qian returned to the Chinese capital after a 13-year expedition with favorable reports on commercial possibilities with regions west of the Tian Shan Mountains. The Han formed alliances with several states in Xinjiang, making for passage through the Tarim Basin far safer for merchants. See, like normally if I was going to show you guys this book, I would read through this a few weeks ahead and write down which words I need to figure out how to pronounce. So I would have figured out how to pronounce that name. I hope it's good enough. So let's see, the purple arrow is the expedition route of Zheng Qian. Let's see. It looks like he came from the capital Chang'an. All the way over here, over, and back again. Nice big trek there across the desert, over the mountains, and back. Very treacherous. It took him, 13 years. Amazing. I'm sure that would on foot. The third box down here says popular Han exports, 120 BCE to 221 CE. During the Han era, merchants based in Central Asia introduced goods such as spices, precious stones, and glass into Han markets. Notable Chinese exports included silk thread, hence the name of the Silk Road, textiles, and bronze mirrors. Toward the end of the Han era, Kailun invented paper, and it is believed that the technique to produce this revolutionizing invention traveled to the west via the Silk Road. So this section here is archaeological finds of Han mirrors. Wow. And this section is archaeological finds of Chinese silk. So let's see where these are. It looks like lots of silk findings over here. along the roads, right? Because they are made over here. You gotta grow those silkworms in a good environment. Desert and mountains aren't really good environments for silkworms. So interesting that they found a way out here. And then look at all of these mirrors found here in Transoxiana. We've got a bunch of silk over here in the Persian Empire. And a bunch of silk over here in Egypt. And even some Chinese silk found in Greece. Oh my gosh, there's so many. There's some more up here in Scythia. And way up here, look at the silk over in Britain. My goodness, that silk certainly did travel, didn't it? All over the known world at the time. That's incredible. I had no idea that Chinese silk made it that far up Europe, up into Gaul and Britannia. Incredible. I always learn something cool. Let me know what cool thing you learned down in the comments, okay? Because that's one cool thing I learned. Let me know your favorite things that you learned in the comments. I love reading your comments. Number 4 says Dun Huang, 104 BCE to 1227 CE. Let's see what that is. I have no idea. While the flow of goods along the Silk Road faltered with the fall of the Han Empire in 221 CE, the garrison city of Dunhuang grew into an important center for Buddhism. Buddhist pilgrims and travelers from India reached the city via the Silk Road to spread the religion. Over a 1,000-year period, they dug the now famous Mogao caves in Dunhuang, decorating them with murals depicting aspects of Buddhist culture. Let's see where the city is. I've never heard of it. Where is Dunhuang? It's noted with a purple dot. There it is. Dunhuang. Wow. How interesting. Yeah, way out on the Silk Road, isn't it? Because everything, like I said, is happening over here. So that's interesting. A little Silk Road city. I mean, there are many, but I've never heard of that one. That's so cool. With apparently some beautiful religious art. Sliding this over carefully to show you these boxes. This says trade under the Tang from 618 to 907. The Silk Road became active again in 639 when the Chinese Tang dynasty, which I know it's pronounced Tang, but in America we call it the Tang dynasty. So I'm going with the American pronunciation. The Tang dynasty regained control of the route with the reconquest of Xinjiang. Trade thrived again until the outbreak of the Anlushan Rebellion in northern China in 755. The Tang era also saw the number of Chinese goods increase dramatically in the Persian Gulf and Red Sea, with Arab traders establishing an extensive trade network from the Middle East and Africa's east coast to Chinese ports. So the little dots you see here are maritime silk routes. Let's trace some of these. Let's see, we've come down from mainland China all through the islands here. It's now Indonesia, Philippines, looks like sailed by. Up, way up into Southeast Asia, along the Indian subcontinent here, all the way up to the Persian Gulf, and around the Arabian Peninsula, over to a bunch of African ports, down here too, and then up the Red Sea to Egypt, to Sinai. How interesting. That's a lot of sailing to trade. You know, the Silk Road overland made sense because people didn't go all the way across and all the way back, because that could take like 20 years, you know. People would go to like halfway points and then just go back and forth with the goods. But I don't think you can really do that on maritime trade. I guess you could drop off here. That's interesting. We were just talking about this town. We were talking about Vietnam a few weeks ago. Oh, I guess you would sail to and then sail back and get some more and then go back, I guess. But that's still a lot of sailing. Like, this is not a short trip from Myanmar to, like, India. That's not short at all. How interesting. I wonder how it worked. Let's see the last box over here, and then we'll read all the little spots on the map. It says Mongols rule the Silk Road, 1215 to 1368. Following the 13th century Mongol conquests, the entire network of roads became part of the vast Mongol realm. The Mongols established a system of fortified post houses to safeguard the passage of trade along the routes, encouraging the exchange of goods and culture between East and West. Italian explorer Marco Polo famously traveled on a branch of the Silk Road to reach China in 1275. There's more about him much later in the book. Marco Polo being one of those very few people who actually traveled the entirety of the Silk Road, from Venice all the way over to whatever the capital of China was. It was probably, I'm not positive, Kublai Khan's capital. Wasn't that Beijing? It wasn't called that then, but I think his capital was Beijing. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, let's see the extent of the Mongol Empire's everything in blue. So at its height, I assume, in 1260, we've got the Korean Peninsula, we've got all of China pretty much. Across the Himalayas, kind of hard to cross those. All of Iran, pretty much the entirety of the Middle East. We've got up here into Russia, Ukraine, all of this territory here. And of course Mongolia, their heartland. Let's read some of these boxes. I'm really curious. Let's see here. In 600 CE, it says Ctesiphon grows into a rich commercial metropolis and becomes one of the world's largest cities in the early 7th century. Here in 120 BCE to 221 CE, the Oasis City is a key stop for traveling merchants, where they often bought fresh horses or camels. That's Merv, by the way. Merv is in Iran currently, I believe. Pretty sure. Here it says in 60 BCE, the Han built a military governor residence in Kashgar. There. Let's look down at India here. It says 113 to 217 CE. During the Parthian Wars, Chinese goods bound for the Roman Empire take an indirect route. Oh look, they made some land crossings here over India to avoid wars with the Parthians up here. Interesting. Up here, there's Dunhuang, 366 BCE. Buddhist pilgrims dig the first of about 1,000 caves, decorating the walls with religious murals. It must be so pretty. Here is Chang'an, 120 BCE to 23 CE. Caravans bearing Chinese goods start their journey westward from the Han capital Chang'an. Here in 25 CE, it says, proclaimed the capital of the later Han, Luoyang becomes the new eastern terminus of the Silk Road. Well, still a little bit farther. And then down here, you see 870 CE. As a result of extensive international trade, up to 200,000 foreign residents are based in Guangzhou, including Arabs, Persians, Indians, Africans, and Turks. How incredible. How diverse it must have been. And then way down here, I don't know if you can see, near Java, it says in circa 830 CE. An Arabian dhow carrying 60,000 Tang ceramic pieces bound for the Middle East capsizes. The wreck was discovered in 1998. How incredible. Dhows were such interesting ships. All hand-built of wood. I'm surprised that the dhow probably hasn't survived until 1998, but all of that Tang ceramics probably did. How interesting. Alright, let me look and make sure I've got all the little things. I think so. What a great map. I thought I knew a lot about the Silk Road, and I learned even more. How cool is that? go to our next map. We're going to read about the medieval Renaissance, looks like, of Europe. Let's see, the first box is way over here. It says Charlemagne's Renaissance, 800 to 814. The crowning of Charlemagne as Emperor of the Romans in 800 brought about a sense that the Roman Empire had been revived in Western Europe. Literature, arts, writing, architecture, and scriptural studies flourished under his rule. The cultural gains of Charlemagne's court dissipated soon after his death in 814, and the passage of the imperial title to a series of German nobles. So the extent of Charlemagne's empire when he died in 814 is in pink, looks like. So we can see down here in the Pyrenees. And then pretty much we got a little chunk of Denmark here along the Elbe River. All the way down to here. And then some chunks of Italy, it looks like. Interesting. I guess this chunk and then this chunk. How neat. I didn't know they got a big bite out of Italy there. But yeah, he was quite a ruler, wasn't he? Let's look at the next box. It says the Cistercians and the New Monasticism, 1098 to 1153. The Cistercians emerged as the old monastic orders came to be seen as wealthy, self-serving, and distant from their original spiritual missions. Founded in 1098, the Cistercians spread under the influence of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux and had over 300 monasteries throughout Europe by his death in 1153. With a rigorous observance of the rule of Saint Benedict, the Cistercians became noted for their piety and offered the surest road to heaven. My goodness. So, a major Cistercian house is noted by this little pink cross on a hill. Lots of pink on this map. So you can see a bunch up here in the British Isles. There's one in Ireland here. Down there we've got, let's see, got some in Spain. We've got a bunch kind of here in central France and Germany. And we've got some wild ones out here in the no man's land. This is where all the pagans lived at the time. Not so much down here, but up here. It's so interesting that they managed to spread out. We've got one down here in Rome as well, it looks like. And up here in Sweden. What are they doing way up there in Sweden? They're far from their little heartland over here. How interesting. Surest road to heaven. That's one, I think. There's no way you can know. Oh dear. Can I get this box in? I got the box in. Alright. The New Universities, 1088 to 1348. In the 12th century, scholars such as Abelard at Paris and Anselm of Aosta at Bec taught classes in theology and logic that attracted large numbers of students. Their schools developed into studia generalia, or universities, which offered a wider range of courses. Bologna University was among the first of these institutions. How incredible, the first universities in theology and logic. So we have universities are these dark green squares, and other theological schools you can't really see, but they're lime green squares. My favorite color, that bright green. So we can see all kinds of universities up the Italian peninsula. We've got a bunch over here in France. The first was in Cologne, right? But we've got up in London and Oxford, of course, famous ones. Salamanca. Oh, you can't see Spain. We've got Lisbon, Seville. Lots of Portuguese ones. More than I expected to, but still more than I expected. respected, and one out here in Prague. Very famous. Isn't that like Charles something or other? They were all called Charles something or other at that time. Anyway, number 4 is the influence of Arab scholarship from 1085 to 1300. Many scientific and philosophical works by Greek scholars had survived only in the Islamic world, often translated into Arabic and added to by Muslim writers. In the 12th century, these filtered into Europe through areas such as Sicily and parts of Spain such as Toledo that had recently been conquered from Muslim powers. Manuscripts of many works by Aristotle, Ptolemy, and Euclid were then translated into Latin and helped fuel the 12th century revival in scholarship. So centers of contact with Arab scholarship are these pink universities with the crescent moon there, very appropriate. Muslim lands reconquered by Christians up to 1200 are dark purple, and then reconquered by Christians up to 1300 are in this lavender. So they reconquered Sicily, right? You can see the Arab Center of Learning here in Palermo. Over here in Salerno too, interesting. Bunch up here in Italy and along the French Riviera here into Spain and Barcelona. And then of course a bunch in Spain because that was their heartland, all through here. And let's see, we've got the dark purple, so they reconquered this chunk. And then by 1300 they reconquered this chunk, which I just talked about recently. I did a video on Andalusia, so you can see that this chunk, it took another 100 years for them to conquer. But they had most of Andalusia by then. And let's look at the 5th box. Developments in literature and song, 1100 to 1200. The 12th century saw an upsurge in literature in the vernacular or local languages. Many of them epic poems such as the Germanic sagas, the Nibelungenlied. So here's a trick. What I do when I see a word I don't know, I just repeat it like 5 times out loud. So let's try again. Nibelungenlied. Oh, and Wolfram von Escherbach's Parzival. I guess it's Percival, like the King Arthur knight, Percival. In southern France, troubadours, traveling performer poets, spread chansons de geste, or songs of deeds, tales of romance, heroic deeds, and courtly love, such as the Chanson de Roland, which recounted episodes from Charlemagne's campaigns against the Muslims in northern Spain in the 770s. And there's no things to look at. It's just so you know, lots of poems and songs being sung at this time during the medieval Renaissance. Let's look at these boxes we have up here at Cambridge. And I guess Oxford too. It says 1209. Students fleeing unrest in Oxford helped to establish Cambridge University. That's right, it started as a protest. In the 1160s, student numbers at Oxford University grow. It gains a royal charter in 1248. Here we see in 1078, Anselm is elected as abbot of Bec, which becomes an important theological school. Down here in Spain, in Toledo, it says in the 1130s, a school of translators established by Archbishop Raymond translates many Arabic and Hebrew works. Then we have, here's Bologna. Bologna Law. It's a law school. 1088, so you can see, Bologna, an important center for legal studies, becomes the first university in Europe. That's true. How interesting. I always thought it was Oxford, but I guess that was the first in the UK, current UK, right? We have, I guess that's a thing I learned, first university right here. The 10th century onward The medical school at Salerno acts as conduit for Arabic medical works. How interesting. Do you think that it had a Christian and Arabic school of learning at the same time, or was one before the other? It says the Salerno one since the 9th century. This one's the 10th century onwards, so maybe the Arabic one was the 10th century. I don't know, I wish I'd talked more about that. That's interesting. Are there any other little boxes? Oh, that's kind of a bummer. It's a fascinating time in history. I wish there was more. But oh well. That's neat. Lots of learning, right? An uptake in learning. Thanks to spreading out all these monks, establishing theological schools, and because of the Arabs down here, saving all of that important knowledge from so long ago. If it wasn't for them, we would have lost a lot of ancient books and texts and things. Really incredible learners the Arabs were at this time, here and over in like Baghdad and Damascus too. They really put education above many things. But let's look at this last map. Let's see what we've got. This is the Crusades, speaking of the Arabs over here. Oh dear. Let's see what happened in this map. We've got the first boxes. The first crusade was 1095 to 1099. In answer to an appeal from Byzantine Emperor Alexius I, Pope Urban II preached a crusade, promising the forgiveness of sins to all who took part in an expedition to retake Jerusalem. The main army of 10,000 knights, mostly Frankish nobles, who gave the expedition the name of Prince's Crusade, traveled across Anatolia, overcoming stiff Muslim opposition before capturing Antioch and then storming Jerusalem. So the major areas of recruitment are in pink, pardon me, and the routes they took are these pink arrows. So we see they recruited up here, what's now like Belgium, France, or Lorraine's Germany. Oh, France and Germany. Here's the Rhine River. Northern France, Central France, Southern France. It looks like they came here from Toulouse, traveling down Italy to head through, I guess, Greece over to Constantinople. These people came, I guess, following the Rhine River and the Danube down this way. And what's this path? I guess there are many ways you can go via the Alps down the coast. Way over here to Constantinople, and then they would go through Anatolia, conquering right here, and then conquering all down here, heading to Jerusalem, which I think they took over Jerusalem at that point, right? I think. Let's read about the Second Crusade from 1147 to 1149. The fall of the isolated outpost of Edessa to Zengi, never heard of him, the Muslim ruler of Aleppo, caused shock in Europe and led to the preaching of a new crusade by Pope Eugenius III. The Crusaders, mainly from Germany and France, traveled largely by sea, but despite besieging Damascus, achieved little and did not recover Edessa. So we can see they came from way up here in England, sailing down, and came over here, and it looks like some came from France here, kind of down the same, almost exactly down the same path as the First Crusade, but then heading down to Ephesus, going through the Aegean Sea, then heading this way toward Jerusalem. Let's read about the Third Crusade, which was from 1189 to 1192. In 1187, Saladin, the Muslim ruler of Egypt, now I have heard of him, I I did a video on him ages ago, like from the beginning of my channel. Interesting person, Saladin. Captured Jerusalem, prompting the calling of a further crusade. A crusader army led by King Richard the Lionheart of England and Philip Augustus of France succeeded in checking Saladin's advance and took the important cities of Jaffa and Acre, but was unable to recover Jerusalem, which had been the goal of the expedition. It was sort of kind of a disaster for Richard. So coming down again from London, taking the same route, and then coming from France, also going by sea, it looks like, to the Third Crusade. They came up here. And through the Mediterranean. It looks like some also came by land along the same path. I guess it worked 2 times before, but they skipped Constantinople, heading to Jerusalem. Going to the Fourth Crusade from 1202 to 1204. It says, called by Pope Innocent III, the crusade originally set out to reconquer Jerusalem, but its army was diverted by Alexios Angelos, an exiled Byzantine prince who promised the crusaders a great reward if they helped him recover his throne. Instead, the crusaders sacked Constantinople, which was the capital of the Christian-controlled Byzantine Empire, divided the empire among their leaders, and never reached Jerusalem. So yeah, bad news for Constantinople for that one. Kind of a flop there. And we're skipping ahead to the Seventh Crusade in 1248 to 1254. Led by King Louis IX of France, the crusade set out to destroy the Ayyubid dynasty in Egypt and Syria, then recapture Jerusalem, which the Muslims had retaken in 1244. Louis captured Damietta in 1249, but the crusade became bogged down in a siege in Mansoura, in which many crusaders died. Louis was captured and was ransomed, the price of his return being Damietta, leaving the crusade a total failure. Yeah, from what I know of the Crusades, it started out strong, and the more and more crusades that happened, the more and more disasters happened. So you can see them coming down from Paris, heading to Tunis, up to Sicily. Some just sailed right past Sicily, heading to Cyprus. There's Damietta there in Egypt. You can't see Damietta. Over to Acre there. Is it Acre or Acre? I'm not sure. And yeah, getting bogged down, like they said. Overall, it was such a waste of time, because once the dust settled from all of this, it was exactly as it was at the beginning. What a waste of lives and effort and all of the above, right? Let's read these little things. 1095, Pope Urban II preaches the First Crusade at the Council of Clermont. Over here in Lisbon in 1147, Crusaders help the Portuguese to capture Lisbon from the local Muslim rulers. I guess when you're sailing by, you may as well. Here in Tunis in 1270, Crusaders led by Louis IX of France attack Tunis but are struck down by disease and Louis dies. Talk about disaster. In 1096 it says up to 10,000 knights and men-at-arms head for Palestine in the First Crusade. Untrained groups of peasants have already set out. Oh wow. I didn't know the peasants got involved in that one, but it makes sense, I guess. It was the first one. We've got in 1204, Crusaders attack Constantinople after intervening in a quarrel between rival claimants to the Byzantine throne. Down here in, what's that? Dorlium, July 1095, attacked by Seljuk Turkish archers as they cross Anatolia. The Crusaders under Godfrey of Bouillon fight back and clear the way to reach Palestine. Let's see, down here in 1190, not sure what it's pointing at, but it says the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa drowns in a river en route to the Holy Land in the Third Crusade. Just disasters everywhere, to be honest. It didn't go well for many people. 1114, the capture of the county of Edessa leads to calling for the Second Crusade. 1097 to 1098, Crusaders besiege Antioch for 7 months, finally capturing its citadel. In 1148, the Second Crusaders besiege Damascus, but poor organization forces their retreat. I think that was Saladin as well. This definitely was. 1187, Saladin destroys Crusader army at the Horns of Hattin, leaving Jerusalem defenseless. Here in 1099, Jerusalem is captured by the First Crusade. It is retaken by Saladin, briefly recovered by the Sixth Crusade, and falls back into Muslim control in 1244. And over here in 1291, it says the last major Crusader stronghold, Acre, falls to a Mamluk offensive. I wish they talked about all the various castles and forts that the Crusaders built in this region. Maybe, well, on this map it says the Crusader states. It says the Crusaders established states around Jerusalem, Edessa, Antioch, and Tripoli. They were defended by crusading orders of knights, such as the Templars and Hospitallers. Edessa was the first to be recaptured by Muslim rulers, followed by Jerusalem and Antioch, leaving a narrow strip around Tripoli, which survived into the late 13th century. So the green you see were Latin Christian states. In 1144, we've got Jerusalem, Edessa up here, Antioch, and Cyprus, looks like. The Fatimid Caliphate takes over in this tan in 1144, down here in the Sinai. Other Muslim territory in 1144 is this chunk here of lots of Syria. You can see Damascus there, Baalbek and Homs. The Byzantine Empire took the light green. I guess that's Cyprus, to be honest. The Kingdom of Armenia is up here. It doesn't have a year, but up there. The lands recaptured by Saladin in 1190 is this line here. And all through here. And the Latin Christian states in 1229 are up along the coast here. You can see Tripoli, Beirut, Sidon, Tyre, Acre, Haifa, Caesarea, Arsuf, Jaffa. Jaffa, I think. I think today it's called Jaffa. And Ascalon, I think it says. And of course Jerusalem. The Crusaders were, looking back, a wild and wacky time, but I'm sure at the time it was very chaotic and confusing and violent, right? It was just a moment in European history that I'm sure many European powers wish they could have just taken back, But anyway, that's going to be it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good